What's up, YouTube? And today's a different video because I'm actually not wearing my glasses. I figured I would show my eyes in all of their beautiful, messed up glory. Granted, the left one, like I said, is to be operated on soon, so this shell is temporary. However, this is my right eye. Today's topic is something I've had years and years to think about, and one of my dearest friends in college, who happened to be an education major, really sparked me into wanting to raise awareness about this topic. It's basically the difference between a mainstream education for the blind and a privatized education. Now, what's a mainstream education? Obviously, it's pretty self-explanatory. You throw the blind kid into the class and, let him fend for himself. Teach a man to fish, right? Get them while they're young, as they say. However, that approach is flawed because it negates the fact that every single blind person has a different way that they need to be taught. And I really can't wait till I make the video about the different schools of thought, because I know that's going to tick some people off, and I look forward to that. But I was never too visually impaired to be blind, but too visually impaired to be sighted. So I was always in limbo. So from 1st through 3rd grade, I would get, half of my day with the vision teacher, was what she was called. I would learn Braille, I would learn large print, I would do math on the closed circuit television that would magnify it because I could still see. I would use those Sharpie pens because I needed to be able to see the black ink on white paper. And I got the training that I need, basically. And I was around other visually impaired people, which boosted my confidence. However, in 4th grade, some bonehead decided, let's see what he does when we just purposely remove him from his blind friends. So literally, they put me in a separate class from my other blind friends, and my grades started tanking. Not because I didn't know the material. I've always been a nerd. I love history. People who watch Batman in their recreational time, give me a documentary about the scramble for Africa, and I'll take it any day, no matter how old I was. But my grades were tanking because I was not happy. People were making fun of me. I had no friends. People were always trying to do that. How many fingers am I holding up? And it just got to me, and I just felt really inadequate. So by the end of 4th grade, instead of putting me back to what they knew worked, they just decided to move me to a brand new school. So in Bailey's Elementary, I did even worse, just because the kids were so mean. And at least when I was in 4th grade, I had the luxury of knowing that my buddies were still in the same school and I could run into them at recess, even though the staff tried their hardest to make sure we saw nothing of one another, just because I guess the whole sink or swim thing. And funnily enough, my friend who was separated also started to suffer academically at this point. However, in 5th grade, after I didn't do too well, it was recommended that I go to the Virginia School for the Deaf and Blind. It was in Staunton, Virginia, which was about a 3.5-hour car ride from from Alexandria. So we went and checked it out, and, it was all right. I didn't really think too much of it at the time, because we checked it out in March of the year. But, by August, it was time to go. And I really didn't think about it until 2-3 days before the school year started, because, I just was so full of stuff to do in the summer. Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon were in then. I loved swimming, still do. It was just a nice time. What a time to be alive as a freaking 5th grader. So I go to VSDB, and again, too sighted to be blind, too blind to be sighted. Because even at a school for the blind, where you would think equality would be key, there was still a pecking order. You could definitely notice that those with more sight got away with a lot more than those with total blindness. And those with total blindness tended to be treated as if they were multi-disabled, talked to on a patronizing level, whereas those who were sighted were just one of the staff or whatever. So I was always in the middle of that group, and I got into a lot of trouble, because I didn't fit in. I have to explain a little bit here that at this time, going to Pine Springs and Bailey's Elementary School in Northern Virginia, race wasn't a big deal. I was not at all racially conscious. I was Ahmed, I didn't think about white or black or any of that stuff. And then when I went down to the Virginia School for the Deaf and Blind, I was the only, obviously my complexion being light, the term we use here is brown. I was the only brown kid there. And I remember one of the history teachers saying, you damn sure ain't white, but you're not black, son. So I just didn't know who I was. And at this time, unfortunately, it was after the, invasion of Iraq and stuff. And my name, when you give a lot of blind people nothing but time, they can get pretty inventive with names. My name, they call me Bin Lamed, Osamed, just every other thing in the book. And, I'm very proud of the fact right now I have a middle name of a royal in the Middle East. I'm not going to say what it is, but at the time I was disgusted by it because it was synonymous with terrorism to, uneducated fools. And throughout 6th and 7th grade, man, I was just messed up. I was going to the bathroom to cry, because I just felt like I was getting in trouble for being the little foreigner who essentially knew American history and stuff better than everybody else, but I was effing up my grades just so I could, fit in and hang out with the bad kids that like, yeah, man, I ain't too good. Also, at this time, they decided that it was a good idea to give my mom an ultimatum: put him on ADHD meds or no school for him. And, my mom, unfortunately, had to put me on the medication. And it didn't take long. By junior year, my tolerance was such that I was taking 2 Adderall 30 milligram extended release capsules in the morning. For anyone who knows about medication, that's a lot of amphetamines. That's a lot of meds. But, in 8th grade, I got really tired of it. And a good friend of mine, who I will shout out because he will be in future videos, Noah, how you doing, buddy? He came to school, and we initially locked horns because we were basically, mentally on the same level. He had way more sight than me. But, this kid would always give me hell. Noah's the type of kid who liked to push your buttons just because he could. And he knew exactly how to screw with me. He would always call me Ritalin in the infirmary, even though the dude was, I'm not going to disclose this information, but I think it was his insecurity method. But I just remember one day in 9th grade, the sighted kids were like, you terrorist, blind, and all this other stuff, and I said some things that I'm not going to repeat on camera, but bottom line is I stood up for myself. I got tired of the abuse. I was in the bathroom one day saying, what are you going to do about it, fool? So I stepped to them and I said, you know what, we got 3 more years here. You want to fight this blind terrorist or what? And after that, it's like they respected me, essentially. I didn't respect them, but they respected me enough to leave me alone. I joined a track team. I was doing really well in 11th grade. I remember I missed my appointment to refill my ADD meds, and I just didn't take them again. And only after I stopped taking them did I realize how much they screwed me up. I stopped in December, and then I had no lie gained 20 pounds from December to April. All I wanted was Reese's. All I wanted to do was to sleep. So, I did all right in 11th grade, but I was, just all I cared about was talking to this girl I was talking to and, getting as much sleep as I can and not ditching class. I also had my Spanish awakening, which is another video in and of itself. It's just too precious of a story to pass up, but the Spanish awakening in 10th and 11th grade really shaped my identity today. So we get to senior year, and I joined a track team. Now, for those 6 months, my friends, I never felt so clean, healthy, alive. When those headphones got into my ear, and I would hear, what was I listening to at the time? Big Money Wheezy, white wife beater with the cig underneath. This is back when Lil Wayne was the king. So I would just put in my iPod Nano 5 headphones and go. I was sleeping great. My grades were great. I did 2 years of IB Spanish in 8 months and literally was translating for the remainder of my senior year. I felt great. I felt like I was someone and I had a purpose. We get to Nova, and like I said in the previous videos, I was just another nobody. So that brings me to the meat and bones of this video. Because I wasn't properly mainstreamed, I did not know socially how to interact. I will say straight up that I was a socially awkward little dude when I went to Nova. I was 17 when I started community college, and I had no idea what I was doing. I thought I was hot shit from VSDB, but only to realize, you gotta prove yourself here. I had 7 years to do that at VSDB. And I look back at that now as an experience for people, and I reinforce what I said at the beginning of the video. Mainstreaming is good. Mainstreaming is healthy, because I've seen some blind people that can do algebra 2 equations in their head, but they can't tie their shoes, And I've seen some blind people that literally can tell you every single one of the cons after Genghis Khan for the next 500 years for all of the fragmented conates, but they don't know how to open a bag of chips or order a cab because it's all been done for them in a sheltered environment. So that's part of the downfalls of, privatization, whereas when you're with your own kind, your confidence thrives. Mainstreaming, there is anxiety to be overcome, but if it's done properly, I think a good mix of both is what's necessary. And the last piece of advice I'm going to give is to any parents out there, listen to your kids. And when I say listen to your kids, in 4th and 5th grade, my parents, rightly so, they thought I was just, goofing off and wanting to play Pokemon and stuff and not really caring about my grades. But when I told them I didn't have friends, one day my dad came to school, and of course the kids had to act like, oh yeah, we love this guy, and then he made me look like the loser. So if I can give any advice to your parents, if you see changes like that, it's not easy. Listen to your kids. I often think about what would have happened if that piece of crap counselor hadn't prescribed me Adderall at such a young age. So, if I can leave you with anything, it's there is no one size fits all equation for blindness, deafness, anything. Here I am. I've done them both. And you know what, guys? I'm going to end this like I do every video. If I can do it, you guys can do it.